Hi, listeners, and welcome to my Holland Update. I'm Marianne Manderfield, Public Information Coordinator for the city, and today our guest is Dave Koster, General Manager for Holland Board of Public Works. Welcome, Dave.
Hi, Marianne. Great to be with you today.
Well, thank you. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us.
Always happy to.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to be talking about Holland City Fiber, which is the educational initiative that informs people about what will be on the August ballot, and that's specifically for Holland City residents. But take us through a little bit of background of Holland City Fiber and how that came about.
Sure. Well, the Holland Board of Public Works has been actually offering broadband or fiber optic services for about 30 years now.
Okay.
This really came about first primarily offering it for our own services of electric, water, and wastewater. We were supporting our own utilities with telecommunications infrastructure.
Okay.
And over the years, we leveraged that infrastructure to offer it to very large businesses and coordinating with internet service providers. Some of the major manufacturers in town, but we also connected up some of our key institutions. Some city buildings are connected on our fiber.
Sure.
Hospitals, libraries are connected, and that was something that we did over time. And there's been this interest really throughout the community on how can we make this more universally available? How can we get it to small businesses, to residents, and really kind of make Holland connected with this whole fiber optic network in our community. And so that became a priority for City Council a few years ago.
Sure.
And actually just before the pandemic actually hit, we had launched a pilot program in our downtown between 7th Street and 9th, and between Garrettson, which is where the chamber, West Coast Chamber building is, all the way to where the Civic Center is on the other side.
So that whole stretch.
Yeah, that whole area. We actually developed a program there where we offered what's called a shared gigabit system, and that's a fiber optic network that is much more cost effective to deploy for residential and small business. And we want to do a pilot there to see how well it would be received and, how it would go in terms of deploying it and really understanding the costs of doing that. And we did that over a couple of year period of time, and we saw very positive response. We have a number of residents and businesses that are now hooked up in that area to that system. And overall, just a generally very positive feedback that we've received. City Council is aware of that pilot and our BPW board as well. And so there's an encouragement from City Council to say, let's explore how we can make this more, again, widely available throughout the entire community. And so the city manager and I, over the last couple of years now, have engaged the community in lots of different ways with the assistance of a task force that we also had along with us. And we reached out. We wanted to hear what was on people's minds as it relates to broadband and fiber optic and the concept of the city actually owning infrastructure.
Okay.
And so we engaged about 9 or 10 different key constituency groups in our community. We talked to educators. We talked to small business, the entrepreneurial sector that's out there, people that are serving not-for-profit entities. We talked to people that are servicing the elderly population in our community. Just really try to canvass every possible service provider to understand how they use fiber optic broadband, or how they use broadband today, internet services and other types of telecommunication services. How that might be enhanced if we were able to bring fiber optic infrastructure to them and really increase the capabilities of that system, and to offer choices on different services that could be provided to them. How they saw that actually playing out in the future. And all of them gave us very positive feedback that they thought an initiative where the community would be able to control the development of that infrastructure in a way that they could determine, how capable it should be, how it should be, how good its performance should be, would be a positive impact to growing those kind of services in the city of Holland. And they also encouraged us to reach out more broadly to the entire community, and so we did. We engaged the Frost Center for Research and at Hope College, and they helped us with a community-wide survey. And we asked a lot of questions about, how they're currently using, people and businesses, both residents and businesses, how they're using broadband today, Again, some of these concepts around a community investment in fiber optic infrastructure and whether or not that would be a good thing to make sure that we could have fiber optic universally available to all. And we learned a lot, from that survey. The survey came back, and there were really three big takeaways there. One that I think we sort of knew, and obviously the pandemic sort of reinforced it even more, was that fiber optic telecommunication type services are really on the same level as electric, water, and wastewater. They are a essential service.
Absolutely.
They are not just a nice to have. They're a must to have.
Right.
And so that is something where that was a very clear message coming from those that responded to that. Matter of fact, over 70% of the respondents felt they agreed or strongly agreed with that sort of statement.
So by far the majority.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And so, very few, when you look at the disagreement or strongly disagree, it was a very, very small number of people that responded that way. Then another question was asked as well was, would a community investment really enhance the services and capabilities of the community? And again, there, the respondents were overwhelmingly majority of those as well. Matter of fact, 72% felt that a community investment would be important to help the community advance different services and improve the performance of our community as a whole. And then the third question that we asked them was, whether or not they felt like a community level of investment. So somebody where everybody's participating in an investment in our community to ensure that access could be brought to everyone in the community, that could be universally available. Exactly. Would that be a good approach for our community to take on? And there, 65% of the respondents either agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. So those three questions really gave us a good direction in terms of developing a model, for us to bring to our city council. And so from there, the task force and the staff really worked with consultants to define what the cost of the build out would be, and then how we might look at paying for that. And so the concept that was brought forward, and ultimately City Council earlier this year voted to put this question in front of us on August 2, was for the community to decide whether or not they felt like a millage, to support a bond that would be issued to fund the roughly $24 million investment that it would take to run fiber optic infrastructure past every house and past every business in the community, whether or not that millage is something that our community would support. And so now that model has been put forward to City Council. Again, they put that on, they agreed to put that on the ballots, sent that to both the Allegan and Ottawa County clerks. And so on August 2, the City of Holland residents will have a choice to decide whether or not they want to be able to approve that millage so that we can have that universally fiber optics available to the entire community.
So really quite a bit of work, a lot of work has gone into developing this initiative.
It's really, there's a lot of work over many, many years, so that even back to 2016, before the pilot in our downtown was done, we actually looked at a system-wide deployment at that time too. And this concept of a millage or a community-level investment was part of that analysis at that time as well. Just it took a lot more exploration over the last few years, a lot of community engagement, a lot of feedback received, and then a lot of refining, of what the cost structure would be and how that would, be funded in the last few years.
And like you said, BPW's got the experience from that pilot program.
Absolutely. It's been, our downtown, again, I don't think we've lost a single customer after we have put fiber optic, hooked them up with fiber optic services in that pilot area. If we have, it's been because of somebody locating to another area and just kind of moving out of the area. But otherwise, we've heard very, very positive responses from the people who are being served by that network.
That speaks volumes for itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
I think another thing that we learned from people during the engagement was that they want choices. They want choices in the kind of services that they could get. And so what's being proposed here is something where it would actually be an open access network. So,
Okay.
what the
Explain that a little bit for our listeners.
Maybe people don't really kind of the concept or the analogy that we have used, and I think it's really helped in some of the presentations that we've done with the community is kind of thinking about our highway system today or our roads, right? You may go out and procure a package that you want to have delivered to your home, and it might be UPS that brings that, or maybe it's Amazon, or maybe it's the United States Postal System, or DHL, or a number of different carriers could actually bring that product to your home. Well, they don't all build their own roads to bring it to you, right? I mean, they use one common highway system, one common road network in our community. And it's the community that funds that road. It's the community that funds that infrastructure. And then what it does is it opens up commerce. It opens up opportunities for a number of different providers to provide their services across it. That's exactly the same concept that we're looking at here. We want to build an open access network so that the city funds the infrastructure, the fiber optic network, and then we invite a number of different providers to use it. Matter of fact, we do that today with those larger businesses that I talked about. We actually have 6 partner internet service providers that actually operate on our system today to serve some of those larger businesses.
So it's inviting competition.
It is. It invites competition. It's really, today, I think the business model that's out there where the incumbents are providing their own networks and they're the only ones to use that actually can be a limiting factor to encouraging competition because it's harder to overbuild on top of where those incumbents are. But if a community gets together and says, we want to make this investment because, number one, we want to make sure that it's available to all. Number two, we want to make sure that the performance of this system is as good as it could possibly be.
Absolutely.
And then 3, because we want to bring choices, this is the way to do that, is to build that open access network so that you can actually have all these different options coming to the table and probably be used in ways that we're not even thinking about today because the capability of that is so good.
It'll just continue to grow.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So there's 3 components, if you will, onto this. There's the pass, the drop, and the connection.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you
the pass, the drop, and then I would call it the service.
The service itself.
Yeah, the service itself. Yeah.
So what can you kind of break those 3 different components down?
Absolutely, sure.
For
and
us?
Again, try to give it a little bit of analogy here in a way that our listening audience maybe can understand it a little bit too. Is when I talk about the $24 million investment, that is for the passes, and we call the passes the lines that go past every house and every business. So you can kind of see passes. I'm going past every house, every business. It's like the streets. It's like in front of your house, there's a street that's running down there, or maybe it's a water distribution line that's going past your house. That is that $24 million investment that would be funded through the bond and supported by a millage if everybody votes for that. Exactly. Then the drop is from the street or from your back lot, wherever that fiber line is running, to your house. So that's the actual physical connection from that distribution line into your house. And so, again, if you use the road analogy, it'd be like your driveway would be the drop. If you use a water line analogy, it would be like the service line from the road to your actual meter alongside your house. That is something where each and every homeowner and business in our community will have an option to decide. Do they want to actually have that physical drop constructed to their home? And if they do, we've estimated that cost of around $800 in its total cost, about $820. And so what we've said is we would allow for that to be either paid up front if you want. You can pay it all at one time, or we would actually recover that as part of the cost of the service that's being provided over a period of 10 years. So we could actually spread that out so it's a minimal impact on your actual monthly service bill. Then the last piece of it is the actual services that you're getting. And those services could come from a number of different providers. Again, we're going to have an open access system, and we're going to encourage a lot of internet service providers and other content providers to come and use that system. But just as we've done in our downtown where we did the pilot, the BPW has also been an internet service provider there. And so we put some numbers together based upon the cost of operating and providing 1 gigabit symmetrical internet
Okay.
service. And 1 gigabit is like 1,000 megabits per second,
Sure.
upstream and downstream. It's ultra fast.
That is fast,
And,
very
and
fast.
We're actually designing the system so that it would actually be 10 gig capable. But our base
Okay.
offering would be a 1,000 megabit or a gigabit upstream and downstream symmetrical offering. And we figure the cost of that is about $35 a month. So if you
Okay.
look at that cost connected with your drop to your house, recovered over 10 years,
Okay.
you're looking at a service bill of $42 a month for that gigabit service.
Okay.
Really, really good.
Very good.
Gives you access to
great.
a lot of great stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then on top of that, you can, we hope that certain internet service providers might offer channel lineups, let's say, or other types of services. But even if they don't, the internet service that you receive will give you access to a lot of things that are over-the-top services. We know
Sure.
that today. Hulu and YouTube TV and Sling TV and DirecTV streaming.
phone, right?
Your phone. I
Right.
mean, there's a lot of different
okay.
ways. But even on top of the internet, there are providers that actually provide channel lineups within there, so you can
Okay.
stream regular
Sure.
TV, across the internet through those kind of providers. There's phone services like Uma. That is across
Right.
the internet that you can subscribe to if you want to package different things together. Again, this really opens up choices for people, not only in the internet service providers that could be using the system, but also in terms of what you actually go out and pick that you want to actually receive in terms
Sure.
of various content and services across that system.
So super fast,
Super fast,
room to grow
room to grow, absolutely.
at a very affordable cost.
Absolutely, very affordable, and I think that's the other piece of it too. The federal government has put some assistance money in place for those that are income qualified.
Sure.
There's a $30 a month relief essentially that comes off from an internet bill, and so for
That's a
those
great
that,
point to
yeah,
bring up.
exactly. And so when you look at a $35 a month and a $7 drop recovery, you're looking at $42 a month for gigabit, 1,000 megabits per second. You're talking about being able to take that if you're income qualified and reduce that number either down to $5 or $12 a month if you include the drop on top of that. A really, really cost-effective solution to make sure that you have access to the world that the internet
Right.
provides, in terms of knowledge growth that happens, access to education, access to different types of content that you don't otherwise have.
Right. Healthcare,
and
all of that.
Absolutely. Just the number of different services that are going to grow and expand. And this world of streaming services as
Sure.
well. I mean, it's evolving every day, and you're getting more and more providers that are providing different types and tailored type of content and services to meet the changing needs of the community and of people really around throughout the country. And so that is something that we think that our system is going to be able to provide a number of choices to give people, and it's one of the key things that they were looking for.
Well, and before you all were doing this work before the pandemic, and I think the general public, if they weren't thinking of it before, certainly is thinking of it now, of how much we all need access
Many
to
people,
the internet
right.
and what we do in our daily lives that requires that access.
Oh, absolutely. And you may have found yourself in a situation where you're on video conferencing during the day, and kids are trying to do distance learning, at home. And then there's other needs that are going on. Your house is getting smarter as well. There are
Right.
different appliances that are, being connected to internet and other types of features that are happening, as you mentioned,
Right.
telehealth.
is
Those type of things.
really evolving.
Exactly. And so the idea of having reliable, connection, as well as something that can handle the kind of upload speeds as well. I mean, you're moving data,
Right.
especially in a business environment, you're moving data into the internet. It's not just about your download speed. It's not always about, streaming a movie or something
Right,
like that.
right.
Sometimes you have to push information back. And so this concept of symmetrical, high-speed connectivity is really essential to where the future is heading as well.
Right. More people working from home. You've got somebody working from home. You may have a couple kids trying to access education.
Absolutely.
So the needs are.
growing,
Needs
and
are
it's not
growing
going
all
to
the
turn
time.
around. It's only going to get more.
So if somebody wants more information, where can they find that? on the initiative.
Well, the initiative, right. So what we've done is we've tried to create information throughout this process, and we have a dedicated website now. It's HollandCityFiber.com.
Okay.
And HollandCityFiber.com is a resource where you can read about the community's vision around, the open access network concept. You can find out more about the actual millage proposal. What is behind that? Who does it affect? What would I expect if I actually voted yes for it, and it actually passed, and things started happening from that point forward. What's the timeline, associated with that? And
what is our timeline?
well, what we're looking at
so
is,
if it was to pass in August.
So on August 2, let's say there's a positive vote. We've done a lot of preliminary engineering, but we really have to gear up and do the final engineering at that point. We've got to go out and obtain services to be able to get all the fine detail done. And we'll do that over the winter of this next year so that we can get into the selection of a contractor to do the actual installation work and commissioning. And that would start in the summer of 23.
Okay.
And then we would actually have probably a 2 to 3 year deployment to do that.
Okay.
There's about 14,000 individual passings, as we call them. So if you look at the passes and how many different homes and businesses we're dealing with, about 14,000 in our community. And so it takes a couple of years, to get passed everywhere, to do all the work and either undergrounding some of the services or following the pole lines that we're at to do that work. And so, that's the kind of timeline that somebody could expect. And there'll be, it's not... there'll be people that'll be passed earlier than others, and it just is the way that the deployment plan will go. And those people will be eligible to start getting their drops to their home and start getting some services. So it won't be for everybody, 2 to 3 years but it'll take that long to get past everybody.
Yeah,
sure. Absolutely. Sure.
Well, thank you, Dave. HollandCityFiber.com, wealth of information there. Lots of information. There's videos, graphs, all kinds of information that somebody. Cost breakdowns. I think there's a calculator on that website as well.
If you have your home value, you can put in that. There's a way of calculating what your millage obligation would be.
Right.
And again, if you look at the language of the millage, we're talking about funding a bond. The anticipated first year cost is a millage of 1.5. And I think the average over the years that the bond would be eligible is somewhere around like 1.12 mils.
Okay.
Again, the language of that is in that website as well. So it's a declining situation over time.
Sure.
You see that millage dropping off over time as the bond needs go down. So there's nothing else that millage would fund. Other than the servicing of that bond. Everything else is really within the election of somebody that is deciding to receive service, and those are through the rates that you would pay for that service, that internet service, whether it's from the BPW or whether it's from another internet service provider that's actually using our network. So that's a place to find all of that information, HollandCityFiber.com.
HollandCityFiber.com. August 2nd is the vote.
Yes, so please go out and look at HollandCityFiber.com. We want everybody to be as informed as possible when going to the ballot box here on August 2. So any questions that you have, refer there. Obviously, you can reach out to us at the city or the Holland BPW too if you have other questions. We do have a frequently asked questions page on our HollandCityFiber.com, but if you have other questions, we'll continue to update that and supplement it so that we get the best information out to everybody.
Great. Well, thank you, Dave. This has been a wealth of information, as always, from you. Appreciate your time again today. And until next time, this has been My Holland Update.